Hello, good evening. Welcome to our Board of Education meeting for August 26th. Our first item on the agenda is the Pledge Allegiance, and we're honored to have the students of McAuliffe Elementary lead us in the pledge. Please rise. Great job. Thank you. Mr. Orr, would you like to introduce our guests?
Thank you, Mr. Stratton. Yes, I would. First of all, thank you for having us here tonight. This is a great honor, and we've really enjoyed it. This group, I'll explain real quick who this group is. At my name is Michael Orr. I'm the principal at Christa McAuliffe Elementary. And one of the things that we do in our building, and I know that it's done a lot around the district, is we do vertical families where every staff member in the building has a family of kids from kindergarten through 6th grade. So the kids that are represented here are from kindergarten through 6th grade. These happen to be my family members right here, my astronaut family. We meet once a month, and we really try to increase the building culture and the building community with this effort. So we meet once a month. We do a fun activity. The kids get to know each other from different grade levels. Some of our older kids work with some of our younger kids in different aspects in the building. But the thing that I've heard the most about this over the last year that we've been doing it is the number of parents who have talked to me and said, my child has seen somebody from their astronaut family out in public who they did not have any idea who they were before they started this, and they've made those connections too. So not only are we looking at families within the building and culture within the building, it's also spreading out into the community too. So it's really great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have them introduce themselves and tell what grade they're in.
My name is Brooke, Shanahan, and I'm in 2nd grade.
My name is Jonathan, and I'm in 2nd grade.
My name is Madeline Williams, and I am in 4th grade.
My name is Lillian Williams, and I'm in 4th grade.
My name is Gianna, My name is Gianna Shadle, and I am in 1st grade.
My name is Lena Cropper, and I'm in 5th grade.
Hello, my name is Nathan Mistel, and I'm in 6th grade.
I'm Caden Breeze, and I'm 3rd grade.
Great job. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. It looks like we have some other students that are here, and typically they're not here just out of curiosity. Usually they're here for some other reason. So do we have any students here that are part of a class that started, and there's a requirement for their student government class, if you want to raise your hand? There they are, getting a good jump on things. Good job. And how about from our scouting programs? Anyone here from the scouting programs? Thank you for being here. Welcome. Great. With that, we'll move on to our agenda, and the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. I'll seek a motion to adopt or amend.
Mr. Stratton, I'd like to pull 501 and 502, which are 2 policies that were for second readings tonight, and I'll explain later in my board report why.
Okay, thank you.
Second the motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to adopt with the items 501 and 502 removed from this agenda. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Thank you. The agenda is adopted. With that, I'll seek a motion to approve the minutes of our special meeting of August 12th.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Mack.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Zila. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That passes 7-0. We move on to the minutes of the regular meeting of August 12th. I'll seek a motion.
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Sinclair.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodburn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That passes 7-0. Now we move on to item 2.01, the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Fulton.
Okay, thank you. Great to see everybody out this evening. I want to start off with sharing an item regarding the BioNexus KC recognition. Katie Swan, a Shawnee Mission South junior, created an artistic representation of a science project she conducted to measure bacteria. It is now being featured as part of the BioNexus KC Science to Art platform. Her work will be featured at the Kemper Museum of Contemporary Art and at an upcoming BioNexus KC annual dinner. The project was conducted as part of a Biology 1 course with James Wanamaker, Shawnee Mission South science teacher. She also worked with an external mentor, Dr. Carl Gilhouse, a principal scientist and national expert in infectious diseases at MRI Global. So congratulations to Katie. Kansas Commissioner of Education, Dr. Randy Watson, announced that Shawnee Mission Northwest is one of 10 schools in the state to be recognized for the civic engagement opportunities they offer students. Shawnee Mission Northwest is being recognized not just for courses offered, but also for the many ways students are engaged in community service and extracurricular offerings. Congratulations to Shawnee Mission Northwest. The National PTA is recognizing several Shawnee Mission schools for strong family-school relationships. Bolinder Elementary PTA, East Antioch Elementary PTA, Tomahawk Elementary PTA, Indian Hills Middle School PTA, and Shawnee Mission East High School PTSA have earned the National PTA School of Excellence designation for 2019 through 2020. These 5 Shawnee Mission schools are among only 7 in the state to earn this national recognition. We congratulate these school communities on this achievement. And I had the pleasure of meeting with PTA presidents and principals here at the CAA this last week, and we can't thank those individuals enough, on the members of the PTA and the officers, all the parents, students, and teachers who commit a lot of their time to making our schools the best it can be for all students. So thank you to all of them for their work. And then finally, we have a 50th anniversary highlight. As you know, we're sharing historical information at each board meeting as part of our 50th year celebration. And as you may remember, last meeting, we talked about the opening of Shawnee Mission Rural High School. Tonight, we talk about Shawnee Mission East, which opened in 1958. As the school was opening, some community members advocated for the school to be named after Dr. Howard D. McEachin, the acting superintendent. Dr. McEachin was adamant to brand Shawnee Mission as a school district of excellence. He wanted colleges and universities to know students from Shawnee Mission were excellent too. So the second high school opened with the name Shawnee Mission East High School. A little bit of a historical note. Anyway, thank you very much, and that concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Any board members, any questions for the superintendent's report? All right, we move on to item 2.02, which is board reports tonight, and I'll turn to Mrs. Mack. Any SMAC PTA update?
Yes, well, Dr. Fulton alluded to it last Friday morning here in this room. The PTA principals, or presidents, and then the principals in, I think we had almost every building represented met here. And I think almost all of our Board of Education was there as well. It was a wonderful morning to get together and start the new year off.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Owsley, update on our foundation?
The Education Foundation breakfast is next week at 7 a.m. on September 5th, and Dr. Fulton will be speaking, and we'll be hearing all about the district for the upcoming year.
Great. And I'm hearing that it's at a sellout or near a sellout, so call in if you hadn't arranged your tickets already. Reverend Guy, KASB, coming back from your first full board meeting.
Yes, I had orientation last Friday afternoon for the new board members, and then my first board meeting was Saturday out in Topeka at the KASB headquarters. Most of we met with the legislative committee first, and so I'll let Dr. Sinclair talk about what the legislative committee talked about. But during the board time, we had a presentation and I can't remember the gentleman's name, but KASB is offering now, one of their workshops is on school safety. And that's become very important and very popular, especially among the smaller school districts who don't have the resources that we have here. And so they have already booked up, I think, their first class, and they're going to be offering several others. So he was just walking us through what they're going to teach in that class and how they are going to use the Virginia Student Threat Assessment Protocol. So I got to learn more about that, and anyway, that was very interesting, and I applaud KASB for knowing what it is that school districts want to know about and then fashioning these workshops to address those needs. Along those same lines, now they have taken their marketing department and looked at all the workshops that they offer and see what needs those different workshops address. And so now they're putting them under umbrellas about the different needs that these workshops are addressing, which is going to make it easier for us when we're looking for specific workshops on specific topics to go and find that umbrella. Are we interested in post-secondary needs, or in student safety and wellness, in governance, whatever it might be? We can look and see all of the workshops they're going to be offering in the next year, all of the locations where those workshops are going to be offered, and then hopefully one or more of us can attend those different workshops as we are able. And then, of course, in December is going to be the annual conference, and so they're already talking about what's going to be offered there, and they're looking at possibly changing that schedule. They've been getting feedback from people that early December is a difficult time for a lot of people to attend a 2.5-day conference. They're also looking at different ways they might do the delegate voting, possibly going to online for that. So all of these conversations are ongoing. So it was a great first meeting, and got to meet lots of great people from around the state, and I think that's it.
Thank you for that update. And I'm now realizing that we've got visitors that probably this is their first school board meeting, and so we're throwing around acronyms like crazy already here. So to give you a quick update, so KASB is the Kansas Association of School Boards, so that's our state organization of all school boards across the state, to which Reverend Guy is a representative that represents us. And earlier we got an update from Mrs. Mack on SMAC, PTA. It's not a wrestling term. It's it's the Shawnee Mission Area Council of PTA. So I want to make sure that everyone knew what those were. And with that, I'll turn to Dr. Sinclair for update on the government group within KSB.
So the Legislative Committee met all day Saturday, and we actually covered a pretty wide breadth of topics and issues. Let me speak to the process first. So the committee gets together and reviews the standing platform of the Kansas Association of School Boards and identifies at this meeting on Saturday a number of issues that might be coming up in the pending legislative session, both at the state and federal level. And from the work that we did on Saturday, the staff at KSB then will prepare somewhat of a survey, kind of a summary of the issues that we discussed around each potential legislative issue, and we'll then roll those out in regional meetings over the next couple of months prior to the next meeting in November. So the school boards from across the state will have an opportunity to weigh in on what was discussed on the kind of potential issues for the coming year. So just to identify a list of top, kind of the range of things that we talked about, the meeting was opened with a summary of the regional conversations that happened over the summer, and those committee groups, board members across the state, probably number one on their issue was special education funding, which is something that we've been talking about and has been on our legislative platform. Mental health concerns, Medicaid expansion, bullying, funding pre-K, issues around vaping, the retirement, the CAPER system. So there was kind of a range of issues. Then we kind of really dug into those, and we heard reports from some of the task forces that have been gathered legislatively or through this leadership through the State Department of Education. from the state level and how that might impact the session. So that included the upcoming at-risk audit that the state will hear, or the state legislators will hear in January. The bullying task force, vaping task force, some issues around bus drivers and unemployment insurance, immigrant children in detention centers, the non-discrimination policy for LGBTQ students, and that was really wrapped into our conversation around the bullying task force. I would say over half the issues on our legislative platform came up through the conversation, as well as those that I heard, from last year's legislative platform. And then from those that individually that I received from you all, that was infused into the conversation as well.
Great, thank you. What's the timeline as to when the final platform, it's developed and then it goes to the floor in December?
Thank you. So the data will be collected, feedback will be collected over the next couple of months. We meet again November 2nd, I believe is that Saturday. And then we make kind of final revisions, then present them again in December, and then they're presented to the delegation before the January session kicks off.
Great. Thank you for that summary and for representing us with that group. And now
One more comment?
Yes, please go ahead.
Reverend Guy's comment about the tobacco policy and the use of the patches and whether or not that would constitute a nicotine delivery spurred a very lively conversation.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll turn to Mrs. Goodburn for an update from the Policy Review Committee.
I'm first going to update from KASB, my assignment, which is the nominating committee. It's a short term, very short term, actually one meeting, and that meeting's happening September 7th, FYI. So I'll be in Topeka, like you all were this last weekend. I'll be up there that Saturday at 9 a.m. for my meeting for the nominating committee. Now I will turn to the Policy Review Committee. So we did pull those, I pulled those policies today, in part from some information from our last meeting that Reverend Guy brought up that Dr. Sinclair was able to talk a little bit to the KASB people this weekend about, and it was something that they hadn't really thought of, I guess, or had never really come up. So I subsequently had a conversation today with a friend of mine who's a doctor who deals with this subject. And so I think it would be prudent for us, I pulled the policies because I want us to look to see if we need to put some kind of exception in there for students or staff that might be going through some kind of a smoking cessation program that would cause them to have to use a nicotine delivery system that is FDA approved, like the patches. And I think that there could be easily written into our policy potentially. So we will take our next policy committee meeting and potentially just fill that crack in and bring that back to you all, I would assume, at our next meeting, or in a meeting in September if we don't get it done the first one. So that's why I pulled it, so you all know. Other than that, we have a couple other policies that are just cleaning up language and adding statutory changes and things today. So.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to item 2.03, and this is our board financial report. Board members have had an opportunity to review this in advance. Any presentation on that?
I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Atha.
Great.
No, I'm going to stand in for Russ Knapp this evening. He has a family commitment this evening and cannot be with us. As you know, the 2019-2020 budget was approved at our last meeting. This financial report before you this evening reflects budget transactions through July 31st, with very little activity this month, and there are no anomalies to report to you this evening.
Thank you. Questions on the report? All right, thank you for the update. We now move to item 2.04, which is our public comment section, and we have someone that would like to speak tonight, so I'll read briefly the guidelines for that. Under public comment, here are a few reminders that will help speakers have a constructive and positive experience when presenting comments to the board. When making your remarks today, please proceed to the podium when your name is called and share your name, your city of residence, what school you or your children may be attending, and the name of any group or organization you're representing. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and make your comments standing behind the podium. And generally, responses from the board during public comment are limited to clarifying questions. If there's something pertaining to the agenda tonight, the board president may ask the superintendent or designee to address the comments at that time. And with that, we'll invite our guest, Shoshanna White, come forward. Welcome.
Thanks. I sound like a source.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me? I'm Shoshanna White. I'm a sophomore at Shawnee Mission South, and I have 5 siblings. So I have 3 at, I live in Overland Park. I have 3 at Trailwood, 1 at Indian Woods, and 1 at Shawnee Mission South, so the whole range. And first, I'd like to give a shout out to the parents who spoke about iPad use at the last board meeting I went to. They're what inspired me to speak today. I'm not going to give a spiel citing a lot of statistics about iPad use. I'm here to talk from my personal experience, the experience of my siblings, and the thoughts I've heard from my friends. I understand that kids need to be learning how to use unfiltered technology, but that skill shouldn't be developed in elementary school, and probably not in middle school either. The time to start letting kids restrict themselves is high school. I'll walk through some issues I see in elementary school restrictions on iPads, but first I'd like to thank you for making the recommendation that kids not be on their iPads during indoor recess. Before I talk about the restrictions that I think are necessary, I'll give you a few examples as to what elementary school kids have access to on their iPads. In first grade at Trailwood, the children had an opportunity to see how chicks grew in an incubator. The teacher asked kids to find a picture of chicks on the internet and set it as their home screen. Boy, were we surprised when my sibling came home with a picture of 2 ladies in skimpy bikinis, chicks, as their home screen. I decided to get onto my brother's iPad to see just how much was available for these young children to access. I was horrified by what I saw. You could find pictures of any body part. You can look up cuss words and the definitions just come up. When I went online to take screenshots of what I found, to my surprise, the sites were blocked. I checked again later, and they weren't blocked. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe the VPN went in and out. But there's an easy hack to get around what's blocked, even when the VPN is up. All you have to do is spell it wrong. For example, I could look up PENUS instead of. Another example. If you've ever played a band instrument, you know that there are fingering charts to show you where to put your fingers for each note. However, if you look up fingering and go to images, a fingering chart is not even close to the first thing that comes up. I provide you with a screenshot of what does come up in the papers. I don't have enough time to finish saying all my examples, but included in the papers I gave you is a list of some things that have happened just within my family. Imagine your child, your niece, your nephew, your grandchild, your friend being able to access all this material. It's not okay, and this is the tip of the iceberg. How are we going to change? Well, one way I think would be simple and effective is not to restrict sites at all. Instead of restricting sites that you don't want, simply allow the sites that you do want. Even if you think you've blocked every possible inappropriate thing a child could look up, there's almost always something more. If you allow, say, 100 sites that you think that are appropriate and educational tools, the chance that a kid will accidentally come across something that they don't need to see is slim to none. To conclude, I think that kids have access to way too many inappropriate things. The solution I propose is allowing appropriate sites instead of restricting inappropriate ones. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Thank you for being here. We appreciate your comments. I'll turn to the superintendent or board members. Any comments? Any board members with any clarifying questions? Thank you very much, and thank you for the support information. We appreciate it. With that, wraps up our public comment section, and so now we'll move on to the discussion items, which is 3.01, and we have a presentation. Dr. Fulton?
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hubbard and her team. This involves a couple of items on our consent agenda, but they have some great information about how those items connect into our work. Dr. Hubbard.
Thank you all for the opportunity to talk about teaching and learning. This group behind me, including myself, love that opportunity, so thank you for that. We want to talk just a little bit about two items that you're going to see tonight on the consent agenda. One being the Mackrell walkthrough tool for classroom observations, and the second one being response to intervention professional learning for a group of school, both teachers and leaders that would participate in professional learning. So I want real quickly, though, to take this opportunity to talk about how these two things specifically tied to the strategic plan. So neither of these things are new. We've been working on them for a couple of years. And so it's part of our normal operating practice, but we really need to be better at it. So hence more professional learning for our staff and really create this more buy-in. So we've had pretty limited professional learning in response to intervention. We have a new handbook that is being utilized in our schools, but we really need more people on board with us to get it implemented with fidelity. So Darren's going to talk more specifically about that. And then the Mackrell walkthrough tool, we have been using a system that we've done internally through both Google Forms and then through an app that technology created for us. But the Mackrell system gives us just better reporting data and a little more user-friendly in regards to walking into classroom, now what I would be able to do on my phone. So Kevin's going to speak more to that. But I really want to point out just real quickly how this ties to the strategic plan, and they're going to talk more about that through the presentation. But just take the opportunity to talk about our 5 strategies and how these 2 tools specifically can relate to the 5 strategies, 3 particularly, and really a 4th if you push it just a little bit. And then both of these tools align directly to the 3 objectives that we're trying to improve for kids. So personalized learning, college and career readiness, and then interpersonal skills. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Darren to talk more specifically about response to intervention.
Thank you. As you probably know, RTI stands for Response to Intervention, and it is a process. It is not an instructional strategy in and of itself. Very, very basically, the idea is that we are screening students on specific skills that we've identified that they need to know. And then we've created a system around them to make sure that they get those skills, including intervention if they need additional time and support. This is, as Dr. Hubbard said, not new to Shawnee Mission. We've had a version of RTI or MTSS for a number of years. What is new is that we have attended some training about 16 months ago that helped us rethink and refine our process in Shawnee Mission so that we could improve it. We took a team to Des Moines where we spent about 3 days really intensively looking and studying the RTI process and thinking about how it applied here in Shawnee Mission. And when we came back, we put together a handbook, we defined more clearly what RTI means here in that process, and then we put an implementation plan together which included professional development. And so the first year, last year of that handbook, we spent a great deal of time working with principals throughout the school year on that process and in that handbook. It was really built around this book that's on the screen, Taking Action, which is directly aligned to the RTI model that we developed. And we trained with administrators. We also worked with coaches, instructional coaches, and innovation specialists. The really key thing about this particular book is that it is a step-by-step guide to take a school into the RTI process successfully. And so we've really worked hard with principals to help them get through that process, to build the culture, and then build the system to help students be successful. We're doing this because we know that RTI works. There's an extensive research base around RTI. You may be familiar with John Hattie. Dr. Fulton has cited him several times. He's done a number of meta-analyses on factors that influence student learning. And response to intervention is his 4th highest rated factor. I won't go into the explanation of how his effect size works, but it's the 4th most effective strategy that he found. And so we strongly believe that this is an effective tool, an effective process that we need to improve in our schools.
I'm going
to take the opportunity to talk about the response to intervention model, and I also want to recognize we have Mrs. Lord from Mill Creek and Mr. Lash from Briarwood, because we continuously talk about the training for principals. They were obviously a key part of that training last year. They've also been in the district to know that the shift in how we approach response to intervention has shifted greatly, because the triangle used to be the other way around. And so through our learning, we understand that we really need to focus on that Tier 1 instruction, and what that means is that we give all students access to priority grade level standards with the expectation that all students will master grade level priority standards so they are college and career ready. And then we look at Tier 2, which is when we have students that need additional time to master those grade level priority standards, or need additional intervention or enrichment and extension, that we provide that Tier 2 instructional model for students. And then Tier 3 takes us to those students that really need intensive remediation and universal skills. They have gaps in their learning, have missed out on foundational learning of reading and math skills, possibly have barrier with language. So they really need, or social emotional skill development. So they need intensive levels of support and instruction, as well as access to all grade level content priority standards. So that's what the RTI System Framework, how that's explained, and the triangle kind of captures that. But we know that we have to have strong Tier 1 core instruction for all students. So then that minimizes the number of students needing that additional support at the other tier levels. And I had the great opportunity to be a part of the strategic planning process, and I got to work on Strategy 4, which was implementing systems that support our mission and our objectives for students, and this is directly tied to that. This is one of our strategic plan areas that we would design a response to intervention system district-wide that met the needs of students academically and social emotionally with their interpersonal skills. It ties right back into our 3 objectives, as you can see, because it's about personalized learning and what the student needs, whether it be at an intervention level or an enrichment level. It's the expectation that they're college and career ready and they master those academic standards at grade level, and then also that interpersonal skill level and those social emotional skills that we want to develop in students or provide more support if that's needed. So that ties right back into Strategy 1, Strategy 2, Strategy 3, as well as obviously being a key part of Strategy 4 that we worked on.
And so now switching gears a bit to talk about the walkthrough model through Mackrell. And so we started about 5 years ago doing, as Dr. Hubbard said, classroom walkthroughs using a Google form, which we created here locally. And so we gathered some feedback from our principals just last year. And the feedback that came back, you can see this is a word cloud that sort of captures all of their biggest ideas are in the larger words that you see there. But the one thing that they really wanted was increased customization, which it's difficult, for us to do here internally because of the amount of work and time that takes to do that. And then additionally, to have some enhanced data reporting. And so Mackrell really did, that walkthrough tool does allow for that customization and measure and the data. It also allows you to do it again on your cell phone, which we didn't have that capability. And again, as a principal or someone who's walking through buildings, you don't always have an iPad handy, and whipping out a MacBook isn't always the most convenient. And so most of us have a phone in our pocket, and that makes it, again, a little easier for our principals to get into classrooms and have the tools that they need. It's built primarily around the classroom instruction that works, those 9 instructional strategies that Marzano identified in his meta-analysis several years back. And so you can see here, it gives us a way to go into classrooms and then to measure, provides us measurement of that snapshot in time to see what high leverage strategies are being used in the classroom. It helps us to make professional development decisions as we share this data with our building leadership teams and with our staff as we're looking for ways to increase our capacity as educators. And so this is one of the measures that is a big piece of this Mackrell walkthrough. And if you think about its support of the strategic plan, the customization is what is so great about this, is that we will be able then to look at our instructional practice, but because we have the ability to customize as we identify items in our strategic plan, other measures that we would like to see, we could then work with Mackrell to add those in as part of our walkthrough so that we would, again, have that data to see, what is the saturation point for those things? Are we seeing those things in the classroom? And helps us to answer the question, what else? What is the next thing to help us then meet these three critical objectives? And I did want to recognize again that we did have Ms. Lord and Mr. last year. I also invited Laura Brogdon. I didn't want to, she came out, so I want to thank them for coming out tonight. And if you have any questions about how that works, how the walkthrough has worked, sort of from a principal's perspective, we thought we'd have them here so they could answer any questions for you in terms of that. And so I'll leave you with our synthesized mission that we've developed, and would welcome any questions of our team.
Thank you for the update. Questions, Mrs. Zila?
I would love to hear a principal's perspective of what a walkthrough is like. Just kind of, we've got the overall kind of look at this, but that'd be great.
I mean, you're here.
Hello, I'm Michelle Lord. I thought I would talk about how my staff is utilizing classroom instruction that works, and how we like to then utilize the walkthrough model, because it really is that snapshot in time. It's a non-evaluative tool, but it really is taking that snapshot of what is happening in the classroom, and then what can we do to increase our effectiveness as a teacher and strive for that student success. And so, like they said, classroom instruction that works has these 9 effective strategies, and John Hattie in his Visible Learning shows that when we utilize these, they rate really high on the scale. And so my staff, we can all read a book, right? We can read through the book and go through it really quickly. We can read one a month, some read one a week. But we decided that this is important work, and we really want to go slow. So last year, we only got through 2 chapters. And we recognize that that is okay, because when we get done with those 2 chapters, it should be evident in our classrooms when we walk in that chapter 1 is setting the objective. So what we did is spend a lot of time on our I can statements in student-friendly terms. Are we unpacking those priority standards, and what does that look like? Am I setting the objective? Do I have teacher clarity? One of the activities we talked about was we just had the teachers draw a house. And then at the end, we said, okay, well, you get 2 points if you draw a chimney, and 2 points if you had 2 windows. But we didn't set the expectation up at the beginning, and so they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. If we are not clear and we don't provide that teacher clarity, it's really hard to set our students up for success. So when we utilize the walkthrough, setting that objective, having teacher clarity is very, very important, and that should be evident because we've done that hard work in chapter 1. And then did a Google form to get teacher feedback of what chapter do we want to focus on next, and then that is cooperative learning. And we know everything in this book is really great, but we want to make sure that when we're done reading it, we can truly apply it and have our students be successful with it. So that's how we would like to utilize the walkthrough model to make sure that we're doing the right work.
Yeah, and I would add to that the value of this is it creates a shared understanding or framework for what effective instruction looks like. I think a challenge of being at a big district or even a big building is you have in Briarwood 27 classrooms, so across the district hundreds, thousands maybe. What are those 9 essential effective strategies that we want to become the best at in Shawnee Mission? So to me, it's allowed us to focus on those strategies and then measure them. And I think it's important that we know we use the data to inform, not to judge. And I think as a principal, it's really opened up some great dialogue and discussion around instruction. I think oftentimes teachers will say, hey, if you would just say just for a minute, I was getting ready to do this, this, and this. And those are awesome conversations to have. And when we build that trust and a good culture, then we can have that dialogue about what helps kids learn the best. And I would also add that goes hand in hand with our PLC work. As we're using common assessments to measure student learning, it's also important to be able to attach effective strategies that maybe work better than others.
Yes, Mrs. Owsley. Oh, wait, one more.
I don't know that I have much to add other than looking forward to just the customization that the Mackrell offers for us. Like everybody kind of said, we created our own Google form and kind of our own data collection device, but opening that up and being able to customize it to either our strategic plan or to what's best for our buildings or our district, or at the secondary level versus at the elementary level, like some of my colleagues have talked about.
I was just, was there
That's what I was gonna
anything?
ask, yeah.
Yeah,
Difference, yeah.
yeah, thank you. So you answered my question about what you were thinking about in terms of customization. I didn't know if there was anything specific that you all had been looking for, but even just the elementary, secondary level would be kind of big, I would think.
I don't have anything specific to look at right now other than just kind of what are the building needs as they fit into the strategic plan, and kind of just the different levels and what does elementary need versus what does secondary need. And I think it's kind of been close to the same form at this point up until now. And so now maybe we have the ability to open it up a little bit wider to our areas, our levels, and our buildings.
I would add to that, and we don't know what that customization looks like because that's part of the training, and teams will help build that. So principal teams will help build that because they know what they're looking for in their buildings. But also, I think it's an opportunity to measure portions of the strategic plan. Again, I'll make one up as far as there's one around the curriculum maps. So we might add some customization that would say, was the curriculum map being followed? Was the pacing guide being followed? There may be something around, did you see something with the Corwin training? We may add something like that. But again, we haven't determined what those are because the training would lead us to that, but it would give us the opportunity to sort of help us tie back to those three strategies to see if we're getting where we need to be.
Mrs. Ousley.
Yeah, so on the power walkthrough system, that's to get our data points to see how we're doing as a district, and to set those data points and to be more uniform about it. And it's not necessarily evaluative of the educator in the classroom. This is information gathering and not critiquing, so that we can see that we're meeting our goals moving forward. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct. And it's also could be used to design professional development that targets where we know our needs are.
And do we have any reports from educators who have used it? I mean, all due respect to the principals in the room, do we have anybody from on the ground, like, did they say that it was a positive tool in the classroom, that they were able to modify that or grow from whatever was provided through that?
So I just want to clarify, the actual walkthrough process or the Mackrell software specifically?
Well, let's go with
Okay,
both.
so we're using the Mackrell, we're using a walkthrough tool now since 2015, Kevin. And this is what our administrators told us last year about that. So generally speaking, and I think you heard it here, I think the majority of principals will tell you it's great. And I'm going to tell you, as a principal, I used a walkthrough tool. I actually used Mackrell's. It's the one that I personally use as a principal. But it also, the day is busy. I mean, as a principal, it doesn't matter what level, elementary, middle, or high, the day gets away from you. I mean, you get people pulling you in 20 different directions, and it's real easy not to get into a classroom. And so I loved it because we had a certain amount we needed to do, and I scheduled them. So I said, I'm going to do walkthroughs. I blocked out my calendar. I said, I'm going to do walkthroughs during this time. So it was intentional to get into the classroom and watch instruction, watch engagement with kids, knowing that our curriculum was being followed. So walkthroughs in general, I would tell you most of our principals, whether they've been here or in other places, have used some sort of walkthrough tool. I mean, it's pretty common, and walkthroughs, I remember doing a PDK training in walkthroughs probably 20 years ago, so it's not really a new practice. So most have had experience with that. As far as the Mackrell software, I think a large number of us have had experience in that in different places. Anybody? Darren, did you use it before?
We had a homegrown one.
Okay, so KCK used Mackrell. So I think a lot of districts around us use Mackrell. A lot of districts in the state of Kansas use Mackrell, as well as nationally.
One of the things that we've utilizing, it's in my book, is 2 glows and a grow. And so we know that not only as an administrator going in and seeing and seeing instruction happen is really getting our staff to want to go in and see our teachers and learn from our teachers and collaborate with them. So this is something that we're growing with, and we started going in, and it was, it was all voluntary if they wanted to go, and then we had teachers who were like, you are more than welcome to come into my classroom. We're looking for specific feedback. We're looking for cooperative learning strategies, and then bringing it back, and we leave a little note to GLOWs, 2 great things that we saw happen in the classroom, and maybe 1 grow of what we could do. So it's not just even for something that we utilize as an administrator, but it's something we encourage our teachers to come along with us and practice the walkthroughs as well and engage in that collaboration, because it's not evaluative. Again, it is for just improving instruction, improving students, and we need to be able to provide that time for them to collaborate.
Thank you.
Other questions? Reverend Guy.
Back on your slide that's titled Research Supports RTI. I don't know which slide that is, but I just want to clarify. So the 3rd bullet point there is saying that they have documented that students gain up to 3 years of academic growth. Is that
right?
Within 1 school year, I'm guessing.
Correct. Yeah. In Hattie's effect size, 0.4 is considered 1 year's growth. So a 1.29 would be 3 times, or a little bit more than 3 times that. Well-designed and well-executed, it's a very effective strategy.
And then the 4th bullet point says that it's part of the discussion about eligibility for special education services. Can you describe how that would work?
In order to qualify for services under special ed, you have to demonstrate that there's a need. And RTI allows you to document the process that you've used to establish that regular ed is not enough, that you need something additional.
I think there's one of the big advantages of RTI, of that methodology, when you're using it in identification, is it gives you a lot more data on a student, certainly beyond just a standardized test score. So you really begin to understand if you may be identifying a child as needing special education services that actually needs something different from that. And so I think particularly when you're looking at over-identification of certain disaggregated subgroups, it helps you get away from a practice of, again, going just on a test score and really getting to understand that child. So it's a very powerful tool for understanding the learner.
I think the other thing that I would add to that is when you look at the triangle, that tier 1 is all students, and then it becomes more individualized as you move through the triangle, because tier 2, we would be enriching or providing intervention for students based on their personalized plan, but also maybe teaming students together to work on those skills. But when you get to tier 3, they are very much individualized strategic plans on instruction to fill those gaps and closing that gap and that achievement gap for all students to be successful. So it becomes very individualized, with teams sitting down with parents and developing those plans for students to really help accelerate their growth so that they can be successful in college and career ready.
Other board member questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate this update. I think we all learned a lot. With that, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have a consent agenda before us, and I'll first turn to the board to see if anyone would like any items removed for individual consideration. Seeing none, seek a motion to approve.
I would move approval.
Thank you, Mrs. Zila.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodburn. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That passes 7-0. Can we move on to Section 5? And the first item under our action items of Section 5 is, we'll skip down to 5.03, and that is approval of a revised policy. I'll turn to Dr. Fulton to see if there's any clarifications, or Mrs. Goodburn, either on that one.
These are required updates per statute.
It looks like in both cases, this is simply a change of a statute number in both of these. I don't know that this will entertain a lot of debate.
I'm going to be really bold. I'm going to be really bold and move for approval.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Mack. Thank you, Mrs. Zila. All those in favor of approval of the first revised policy under 5.03, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And that's approved 7-0. I'll now seek a motion to approve 5.04 policy revision.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodburn.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Sinclair. All those in favor of the revised policy under item 5.04, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And that passes 7-0. And we move on to 5.05. I'll turn to Dr. Fulton for an update on this consideration.
Okay, thank you. Well, as you know, it's a very exciting time. We are opening our Aquatics Facility this fall with an anticipated completion date of somewhere in early November. The facility, which is owned by the school district, will serve Shawnee Mission's aquatic needs for competition, training, and instruction. The range of activities will include swimming and diving, along with other opportunities still being defined. The agreement recommended to you tonight is a result of months of hard work by the Shawnee Mission School District team and members of Johnson County Parks and Recreation from their team. Johnson County Parks and Rec will partner with us to operate the pool. And Dr. Atha, Mr. Robinson, and Mr. Kramer are here to respond to any questions that you may have.
Any board members have questions about the item 5.05? Yes, Dr. Sinclair.
Okay, so once this opens, if a parent or patron has a question about the facility, who do they contact? Is there a point person at the facility if there's a question, or if they want to rent, or how does that work?
If it's a question regarding wanting to rent the facility, they would contact Johnson County Park and Recreation, and in particular, Marshall McKinney, and I will be introducing Marshall in a few minutes, and he will be the manager of the Aquatic Center.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
9.0 on the agreement describes an advisory board. Can you maybe speak a little bit about the role of that board and who might be, how that might function?
There will be an advisory board that meets once a month at the facility to actually walk through the facility and then discuss the financials each and every month and how we're doing, the care of the facility, how it's maintained, scheduling, and we'll probably be talking a lot about the agreement itself and answering, trying to make sure that we're exerting our due diligence in taking care of that facility to make sure that we're protecting the investment that the taxpayers has made in this facility and that we're using it to its fullness. The members of this advisory board, right now it's going to be 4 members from the district, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Robinson, myself, and Russell Knapp, and then the manager of the pool, and I believe, I don't know who else from the Johnson County part, but they'll answer that for you in a few minutes if you want. So. I'm leaving somebody out. Can you think of anybody, Mr. Robinson?
I don't think they've named their members yet, but Marshall will be one of them, and probably Rhonda will be another.
Rhonda Pollard.
Other board member questions? Mrs. Mack.
Yes. I have a concern that I stated earlier this school year about the MOU. And I'm looking through it really quickly because I haven't looked at it in a long time. When we were discussing building this aquatic center, one of the things we talked about was replacing, we used to have certain schools that took, I believe it was 3rd graders, to our high schools and had swimming lessons free of charge. They were bused over, and I remember Shawnee specifically was at Shawnee Mission Northwest, and those kids, it was amazing for them to learn how to swim. When I read this and I go to 5.04, I think, 5.4, It says JCPRD will work cooperatively with SMSD to develop a plan allowing for all students, which I really like, of a single specific grade level as identified by SMSD to receive swim assessments and/or swim lessons at a reduced rate. So help me understand, because I thought we were going to have this as part of our physical education curriculum, of all of our students learning how to swim before high school, because when they get to high school, quite honestly, it is very difficult to teach kids at that age to swim.
Well, step one is to get the facility open, and then this year we're going to work on developing a strategy to identify the best ways to help our students to learn how to swim. And so we don't have that strategy developed yet, but that's work to be done this year. The agreement is flexible enough that we can adapt to whatever strategy or strategies it is that we take.
Okay. Because when I personally voted for that was one of the main reasons why I voted for the Aquatic Center, because drowning is the second leading cause of death.
Sure.
And all of our students, I would really like for them all to have an equal footing on this space, to learning how to swim.
Yeah, and I think probably this year is going to be about getting that facility open and getting used to having it, which is good because it will be next year before we'll really be in a place where we can fully implement a program. Okay. Gives us this year to plan.
All right. Well, thank you. I mean, Mrs. Zila, was that your understanding as well?
Yes, and I've had a conversation with Dr. Fulton about that very same topic, so yes.
Other board member questions? Dr. Sinclair.
Again, I appreciate the work that went into this agreement. It's very detailed and reflects a lot of work, so thank you. One other kind of logistical question, I'm just trying to think of questions from the user perspective as kind of some of the questions I was asking. Do you foresee some kind of availability, so a calendar of availability? So if there's somebody out there trying to schedule a meet or a club trying to schedule a practice, thinking about the revenue end of these things, would there be a calendar so somebody could look in and say, oh, it is open for this particular weekend, and then contact?
Johnson County Marshal's been working on a calendar that he's putting together for the meets and when there'll be open swim and when there'll be different things. So there'll be a website set up, whether it be ours or theirs. It might be ours pointing to them, that will have all that information.
Fantastic, thank you.
Right now we have, I believe, in our last meeting, we learned we have over 50 events scheduled. 30 some are swim meets with our high schools, and 20 some, if I recall, is with outside groups renting the facility to use.
Mrs. Zila.
Do we have any interest from state or national groups of having a swim meet there yet? I heard a lot of rumbling about that for the last couple of years.
Yeah, we have. In fact, Marshall's working with the USA Swim, so we've had quite a few people. In fact, I think we have like almost 20 meets scheduled outside of Shawnee Mission meets. Great. And we have the Sunflower League meet scheduled already there for both boys and girls. And we have the states going to be touring the building September 10th. And we're looking at trying to host a state tournament also.
That'd be great. Yeah. Thank you. It's a beautiful building. It is really coming together slowly but surely, but we love it. That'll be great.
Yes, Mrs. Housley.
Just out of curiosity, how many districts in the state have a facility that is comparable to this facility?
None. Our facility is well above and beyond what Free State has, Lawrence Free State, or what Topeka Hummer has. It's very similar, but they don't have the amenities that the natatorium will have with the air exchange, the sound system, the number of lanes, the depth, and all the extra things that have gone into that facility.
So if you're a competitive swimmer, the district for you to be at this point is probably the Shawnee Mission School District?
Absolutely. This is the top facility.
Thanks.
Actually, even in the 4-state area.
Thank you. And a 4-state area?
It's an incredible facility.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thanks for the information. I'll seek a motion on the item.
So moved. Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodburn. Thank you, Mrs. Zila. Any additional questions? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. That item passes 7-0. I'll turn to Dr. Atha for some introductions.
Well, we now have a comprehensive management agreement between the two public entities. Johnson County Park and Recreation approved this agreement at their August 21st meeting. You know, I do want to reemphasize the amount of work that went into putting this comprehensive management agreement together. It took over 2 years. If you recall, we had an MOU to begin with, and now we have an agreement. It's quite lengthy. I'm sure it is something that we'll improve upon over the next few years, but I think it's something that we're proud of at this point. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Rhonda Pollard, Superintendent of Recreation, as well as Marshall McKinney, the manager for the Aquatic Center as well. They're here this evening, sat through our entire meeting, and we thank you for being here, and really appreciate the hard work. Everything that everybody was kind of looking at, how can we do something, rather than why we can't do something. So it's always fun to work with positive people that are looking at the best and looking at seeing how we can improve the offerings that we have for our kids in our community. So thank you. Look forward to the partnership.
All right, we move on to item 6, and that is board comments this evening. I'll turn to board members for wrap-up comments for our meeting. Yes, Mrs. Ousley.
Well, I took my friend Nate to enroll in Project Finish today. It was very exciting. The counselor and Project Finish instructor are there, and they are willing to assist folks in going over their transcripts to see what they need to complete their diploma here in the district. They don't have to help you, but the Horizons folks are available throughout the process while you take your online classes. You have access to the Horizons computer lab if you don't have access to a computer at home. You just have to take your final at Horizons. And it is possible to complete your coursework on your own schedule. So it can take as long or as little amount of time as you need. So there's a few more days to enroll. I think the 29th is the last day to enroll for this semester. It was really nice. And I just want to make sure people know it's available and they can call Horizons if they have any questions.
Thank you. Other board members. Mrs. Mack.
Just very quickly, I thank you for listening about the swimming lessons. I really appreciate that. Thank you for all the hard work on this. But most I wanted to ask Mr. Stratton, who said last Friday morning at the Shawnee Mission Area Council PTA and Presidents and Principals meeting that he would join the first 5 PTAs that asked him. And I wanted an update on that.
I'm not good at saying no, so it was actually the first 7 that got to me.
There you go.
So they are now, I'm officially a member of all 7. I look forward to attending any and all of their meetings.
And I got one for Comanche, which I joined.
Yes,
right.
we all, I think, did you all get that one? Yeah.
Thank you. Other board member questions? How many students do we have that made it all the way through the meeting today? Raise your hand proudly. There you go. In a minute, we're going to move a motion to executive session, but I want to recognize those that made it through. And additionally, if you'd like to come up at our break and have Dr. Fulton sign any document that you have that verifies that you were here this evening. And I think in today's world, nothing really happened unless there's a selfie to prove it. And you're more than welcome to take a selfie with Dr. Fulton afterwards as well. How's that? Put you on the spot there. Any other items? With that, we'll seek a motion for executive session this evening with a break of 10 minutes.
So I move we go into executive session to discuss negotiations pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under COMA. And the board will reconvene in the boardroom. How long do we anticipate this?
How about till 7:30? Is that a 20-minute?
20 minutes with the 10 minutes added in. The board will reconvene at 7:30.
Okay. And there will be no business. We'll be moving back to executive session on a second item, but there'll be no additional activities after that.
I'll second that.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here this evening. It was Sarah.